I mean, whatever business you're in, people will find out. Your reputation is all that a business has.
Yeah.
And once you lose that reputation, it's really hard. You know, hey, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. They're all because of previous examples.
Yeah.
We've literally seen it all.
All right, everyone, good evening. This is Elevation with Chris Orem, where we talk to individuals who have climbed the ladder of success. Today, we have a very special guest today, and that is Tait Ecklund. And Tait Ecklund is the owner of Desert Lifeguard Management. And what that basically means is Tait runs and manages this lifeguard staffing service that operates at 25 of the hottest Las Vegas hotels, casinos, day clubs, things like that around town, where he employs over 200 lifeguards each and every summer. So Tait is a very special guest to me. He's now a friend to me, and he gave me my very first leadership opportunity. So I'm very excited today to welcome Tait Ecklund to the show, where we're going to talk about his journey into entrepreneurship and basically kind of what he does on a day-to-day basis. So I welcome Tait to the show.
Thanks, Chris. Good to be here for sure.
Hell yeah. So Tait, you were just telling me that this is your very first podcast.
Oh, yeah, it is actually.
But in a past life, you were no stranger to the mic. Tell us a little bit about that. You were an MC, stuff like that?
Yeah, so when I was in college, I don't know if you know this, but when I was in college, I was the sports anchor for my college news program.
I did know that.
Okay, yeah. And then also in college, I was the DJ for our campus radio station.
Before
too.
DJing was cool.
Yeah, I don't know. It's still, I mean, I think DJing has always been pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, the campus radio station was kind of like a jazz station, you know, but late at night they would play some college tracks and whatnot, and that was always the fun shift to be on.
Nice.
I don't think that they appreciated me doing my thing in the jazz portion of the program in the evening hours. So, But yeah, no. So that was a long time ago, though, Chris. A long time ago.
Cool. Well, I'm very excited to have you on the show today. So let's give the folks a little bit of background on our relationship, and then we can talk a little bit about the company that you run, which grew from a small little lifeguarding company, as we like to talk about, to what it is today, this behemoth in the Las Vegas lifeguarding industry. Tait, I mean, you don't need to be humble, but I don't know anyone probably in the world that knows more about the lifeguarding business than you do.
Oh, there's definitely people for sure. I mean, there's definitely people that know a lot more than I do. But usually they're people that stick with working for, you know, cities, municipalities, counties, that sort of stuff. You know, it's definitely would say it's a niche thing to make a business out of lifeguarding for sure.
Right.
It was definitely not my first choice in life. But this is the way it goes, and it's something that I always loved. I thought it was a lot of fun. Got into the corporate world and got into the whole career field and decided that was not for me. So yeah, that's kind of the very start of it. So I mean, if you want to. You want to talk about your first job working as a lifeguard and whatnot?
Yeah, so my first job working as a lifeguard was not for Desert Lifeguard Management. It was actually at the Mandalay Bay, where I worked for 3 summers, and I learned a lot of good, valuable life lessons, life skills, kind of how to operate in the workforce, this is a life skill, folks. Operating in the workforce is a life skill that we need to teach the youth of America and the next generation.
Yeah, that could be a whole podcast in itself that I could talk about.
For sure. Okay, so I spent 3 summers there at the Mandalay Bay, and then I went off to college. I went off to UNR as my freshman year, and as I was wrapping up, I needed a job for the summer.
Yeah.
Introducing this man, Tait Ecklund.
Yeah, so you came along in our 3rd year in existence as a company. My first 2 years were tiny. I only had the Silverton Casino as a client, and they just needed me for special events, and I was just extremely happy just to even have them as a client.
Yeah.
And then my 3rd year, the TPC Summerlin called me and said that they wanted to outsource guards for the entire, for their whole pool. And so, that was my first big actual client that I needed to actually find like full-time guards for. And so I didn't quite know what I was doing at the time trying to find guards, so I just put out a Craigslist ad. And you might be the only person who's actually ever responded to a Craigslist. I don't even do them anymore, but yeah, I think you're the only person that ever responded that I hired to a Craigslist ad. Yeah, it worked out super well. I hired you as a lifeguard. I had another individual who was the lead lifeguard of the pool at the time, and kind of like what you were talking about, that I gave you your first leadership opportunity. I always use you as an example of like what I want to see. Like in any job, in every job that's out there, you always hear people that say like, "Oh, I want a raise, I want a promotion, I want this and that." And they may gripe to their boss about it, and they may gripe to their significant other about it or whatever. But you kind of set the template for me in terms of what I want to see from somebody who is asking for a raise or a promotion. And this is a very valuable, I feel like, life lesson for anybody.
Yeah.
You came to me and you said, "Look, Tait, this is not working in terms of who the individual that we had as the supervisor, the lead lifeguard. You said, this is not working. Here is how I would fix it if I were to become lead." And you gave me quantifiable things that you were going to do that would turn things around. And so it wasn't like you just came to me and said, "Hey, make me lead. This sucks.
Right.
Hey, make me lead. I can do better." It was, make me lead. This is what I'm going to do. And so, I made you lead, and the rest is history after that. I mean, you did a fantastic job that first summer, and grew with the company for a long time. So.
Okay. So for those that don't know, approximately how long have I worked on and off for your organization?
So that would have been 2016.
Yeah.
And you finally moved on for the last time last year, about a year ago. So yeah, 7 years, I think.
Yeah.
But you were essentially, before you, I mean, yeah, I had that little contract with the Silverton, but really I just had kind of small contract guards. They weren't really employees, but I always say that like you were employee number one.
Yeah. I
with the
appreciate
company.
that. Yeah.
And at this point, we've probably employed, definitely over 1,000 people since then. So yeah.
But I feel like I enjoyed working with your business and helping it grow because it was a challenge, right?
Oh yeah.
When you're growing from a one contract pool business to having 20, 25 different locations and having to manage upwards of 200 or more individuals, things become messy quickly.
Yeah, you get a lot of learning curves. There's a lot of growth pains for sure. I mean, when you go from 1 to 2, okay, that's not so bad. Okay, and then 2 to 4, oh geez, what are we doing here? Kind of a thing. And so, yeah, each time you hit like these little big milestones, and I can't even quantify what they are, but you just know them when you come to them because all of a sudden it's really hard. Yeah, it gets tough for sure. But then at the same time, you learn from those. And, now, I mean, there was a summer, I think, when we got the Palms contract for the first time, and you were, deep into it, and we were all deep into it, and man, we just thought like life could not get any harder than it was now, at that point. And now, if we were to go back to just having, that small little level that we had then, we would all be twiddling our thumbs.
You could do it with your eyes closed.
It would be so easy.
Yeah.
But it was new to us, and it was, this big jump up, and so it was so hard for us at the time. But yeah, so you get a lot of growing pains for sure, but you learn from them, and you just keep, doing better for sure.
And I think we can use your business as a case study to see that over the years, there's maybe one key improvement that year that pushes it through leaps and bounds. I'm talking like going from doing kind of manual scheduling on like a calendar type thing, a PDF copy, to going to an app-based, human capital, CRM system.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that, we probably didn't get to that year, but we probably went to that. Well, I know we went to that in 2021. Mm-hmm. That's when we really got a huge contract and really jumped up. And so that was when I had hired an HR person at the time who really convinced me and did a great job of convincing me that we needed to upgrade into the future.
And you did.
Yeah.
She was right.
Yeah, she was absolutely right.
Right.
I mean, I saw the price tag on it and my eyes almost watered because, I'd gone from being this tiny little company, and then all of a sudden the price tag for this HRIS system was, more than I made, more than the company made in its entire first like 3 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I got to pay for this now. Yeah. All right. So yeah, I mean, you learn what is valuable, and you learn that you can't just like hold on to every penny. It's like, no, you got to spend money and you got to make things more efficient for sure.
For sure. Investing in technology is like a key part in business.
Yeah, 100%.
I think another one is getting that kind of collaborative Google Voice number. Are you guys still using that?
Yeah, we are for sure. So that was, I mean, that was one that I can certainly credit to you, Chris.
Yeah.
Before that, we had 50 lifeguards that would all just text our own personal cell phones and call our own personal cell phones. It was so terrible. And then, they'd text you, and then you'd have to relay the message to me.
And it's my day off, and I don't want to talk to them, and it's 5 a.m., and like this message got lost.
Yeah. So we moved on to a shared Google Voice number that we all can access on our phones, and we can just kind of say, okay, you're the one dealing with the Google Voice now.
Yeah.
You're doing it tomorrow.
Literally shifts.
That's shifts.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you have, this year, at our peak, we'll probably have about 225, 250 lifeguards. When you have that many people these are not professionals, these are not like people that you can just rely on to, like you said at the beginning, you have to teach these people work skills and life skills and how to be in a job and this sort of stuff. And with that comes a lot of hand holding and a lot of babysitting with them. And so, the primary form of communication that people want to deal with now is texting.
For sure.
And so, this Google Voice number, literally people will text at all hours of the day.
Yeah.
We don't man it at all hours of the day, but we man it probably 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
And we're dealing with literally thousands of text messages a day.
It's insane, folks.
Literally.
Yeah.
And so, it's like a full-time job, of just more than a full-time job of watching this phone and answering calls and answering texts and telling people where to go and, hey, remind you about your shift. And I mean, literally hand-holding.
Yeah. But it's so crazy, the differentiation of how 200 individuals will communicate with their employer. Some will be like, hey, what's up? Can't make it to my shift today. And then, some will give you the most polite. Some don't show up. Some, I don't even know. But not only when you operate a business with young people, you see just crazy things. Like you've seen.
Oh, I got stories for days. Stories for days.
Stories for days. And that's like not an understatement.
No. I mean, like it's, when we give our orientation to new guards and when we're doing these in-service trainings with guards and whatnot, we always give these examples of like, well, don't do this because, last year this one guard did this, and it's always like every single example, every thing that we tell guards not to do, we have a story behind, and it's probably more ridiculous than your mind can even wrap itself around. I mean, just things that you would never believe that people would actually do in a job.
All right, let's play a game. Have you, in a hypothetical world, have you ever seen a lifeguard do this? Okay.
Yeah.
Smoke a weed pen on the job.
Absolutely.
Smoke a cigarette on the lifeguard stand.
I don't know if I've ever.
No,
you know? Okay.
I have never seen it, but I know it's happened with one of the lifeguards.
Yeah, I may have. Yeah, I mean, it would not surprise me.
There was no rule against it.
Oh yeah. That's always play dumb for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Let's keep it going.
Yeah.
Okay. Sleep on the stand.
Oh, I mean that's for sure. I mean, unfortunately, if the health department's watching, I mean, we don't want it to happen, but it's gonna happen sometimes for sure.
You ever heard of someone no call no showing? That must be pretty rare.
Oh, no call. Nobody's ever no call no showed. No, that happens on a daily basis.
Okay, so Tait, when you're managing 200 individuals, what's that like? Like, how can you keep track of what they got going on? They got school, they got out extracurricular activities, they got soccer, they got their brother that they got to pick up at 3 and they got to leave early every day.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a good question. And I'll tell you what a lot of this deal, comes down to is, so, I mean, we have a scheduling manager, you used to be the scheduling manager. Now we have another scheduling manager. A lot of that comes down to how good the scheduling manager is and what they keep in their brain. Because a lot of it just gets kept in the brain. I mean, as you know, with you and with Eduardo now, he's the scheduling manager. I may not necessarily know what's going on with somebody, but I know that all I have to do is, say, hey, Chris, like, what's going on with like so-and-so? And you'd be like, oh, well, so-and-so hasn't worked for like 2 weeks because, first they were on vacation and then, something happened with their dad and you would just know it in your brain.
Yeah.
Honestly, like just having a fantastic scheduling manager who knows their stuff and like just knows the intimacies of every guard and what they're going through is huge, So, I mean, having talent to be able to do that is enormous. And then other than that, now on our scheduling software, guards can request days off. Guards can set the hours that they want to work so that we won't schedule them past that. And so we don't need to know as much as we did in the past. It doesn't have to all be in your brain. So, I mean, we try to encourage guards to put that all in the scheduling system and make notes of it and that sort of stuff. But it still is a lot in Eduardo's brain.
Yeah.
For sure. That's a great question for sure.
So you talked to me about having kind of a great team behind you. So I want you to maybe dive in a little bit more about, you being the owner of a business and having that management team behind you so that you don't have to be, worrying about covering shifts on a day-to-day basis and you can enjoy other aspects of your life and take days off and, worry about higher level things within the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So when the business was tiny, I didn't have to worry about that stuff.
Right.
When it was small, it was easy and, you could find fantastic lifeguards who wouldn't call out that much and, and it was easy. Then you start growing some and, economies of scale hasn't quite caught up yet. And, you're not making enough to like hire the right people. So then when you start growing stuff, then it's like, okay, now it's all hands on deck for me. I'm working a crap ton.
Yeah.
My few core people who I could actually afford, such as yourself and Christine, and they're working a crap ton.
And folks, when he says a crap ton, this is not a 40-hour a week job, right?
No.
It's working a lot because this is not a 40-hour a week job, right? These shifts are running from as sometimes as early as 5:45 in the morning to 10 at night.
Yeah.
So someone's got to be responsible for these individuals.
Yeah. And so now we've gotten to the point where my business, the economy of scales has gotten big enough that I can afford to have enough people to fill all those little spots. And, I'm trying to make it so this isn't the 40-hour or this isn't like a 50, 60, 70-hour a week job. But yeah, there was a period of a couple of years there where it hadn't gotten to that point. I couldn't quite afford, all that work. And I was super, super fortunate to have people who would work their tails off like you and Christine. And, that was pretty much it. It was like you, me, and Christine. And, that summer of 2021, when we just blew up and we hadn't gotten to the point where we could afford all these new people, I was literally working. I would wake up at like 6 a.m., and immediately like be on my phone answering texts, and then I'd roll out of bed and immediately like literally just walk over to my computer and start working on admin stuff. And then at whatever time, 7:30, I'd have to like roll out and drive to the pool.
Yeah.
And I would be at the pool, from open at 8 a.m. all the way until they closed at whatever it was, 9 p.m. or something.
Yeah.
And then I'd drive home and my wife would be like, where the heck, she was so understanding. It was, it was amazing. But then, because I was at the pool all day, none of the payroll stuff got done. None of the invoicing got done. And then I'd just get right back on my computer and work until like 11 or 12, 11 p.m. or 12 a.m. and get all that stuff done. And I did that for probably 100 days straight.
Yeah.
Like no days off.
The summer of 2021.
Yes, that was the worst summer of my life.
Yeah.
And I know that you worked equally as hard, and I know Christine worked equally as hard. We were each pushing like 80-hour, 90-hour, 100-hour weeks.
Yeah.
Very thanklessly. And unfortunately, like there's a point in a business where that's what you're gonna have to do.
Yeah.
If you're an entrepreneur, you gotta frickin' work, and like I said, with my business at the very beginning, it would have been counterproductive for me to work that much because there wasn't that much business. But you get to a certain point, you got to put in the work, and if you don't, you're going to fail. And luckily we got that was the biggest growing pain hopefully this business ever goes through, and we got past that, and then we said, okay, now the summer's over, let's take a breath, and let's reevaluate everything. Let's see how we can make things better. Let's see how many more people we can hire. Let's get some help in here, and I think that next summer was far easier.
Yeah.
And last summer was far easier, and hopefully this summer is even easier. So, even as we continue to grow, it just you try to hire people and get the right team around you, and hopefully things will get easier.
Yeah. One thing I like about you is that you always give it your best, and that as a leader, you're always open to feedback, and that when it's the end of the season and it's time to wind down and take those learning lessons, that you're open to sitting down and debriefing, because a lot of leaders wouldn't do that, but I think that's what makes you successful, and it's allowing it to be a team effort to move the company forward and implement systems to say, hey, this was a problem, and let's talk about it as a team, as a management of the company, and let's make it better so that we don't have to work 100 hours a week.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it would have been very easy, especially after that summer of 2021, to, just say, oh my gosh, man, I'm so burnt out. I just worked literally like 16-hour days for 100 days straight. Let's just say screw it and just go to Cabo and just, come back in the spring. But that would be counterproductive, because then I'm just going to have to go through all that again next year. And that's not my intent. My intent is, to make things better and know that we're going to grow, and how can we manage this growth better. And my industry is very fortunate that, the season is 8 months long. It's not just the summer. Pools are opening, at the end of February. We'll be having pools open until November. But we still get that little 3-4 month window where we can take that step back, take a little breath, reevaluate while it's still fresh, say, okay, what went well, what didn't, what can we do better, what can we implement, and try to do better for next year. And that's, like I said, it's for a lot of industries, may not have that chance to take that step back, because it's just a 12-month grind. But it's still critical, even if you are on that 12-month grind, to say, man, we need to take a week and take a step back at least, and take a breath and see what we can do and implement those things. Because that summer of 2021 was so busy that even if we would have taken a step back, I think, and said, okay, we need to get a new person in here, we need to do this, we didn't have the time to even implement it. You know, like there was no time. It was just fire after fire after fire, full steam ahead, you know? So yeah, no, for sure. Like you have to reevaluate things here and there.
For sure. So you mentioned kind of 8 months in season per se. So did you design your business like that on purpose? Like I'm trying to queue up a question. I think you had a conversation with your dad about that very topic. So if you want to touch on that.
I forgot that I told you about that conversation with my dad. But yeah, so when I first started this business, that was part of my mindset. Like I had met some business owners in Arkansas, actually, who they run this bike tour company. Yeah. And so, they would run the business during the summers and during the nice seasons. And then during the winters, he and his wife would literally just like go travel for like 2 months, And that sounded amazing to me. And so, when I thought of this business, it's like, oh, the seasonality of part of it to me was very attractive.
Yeah.
Because I don't really like working 12 months a year with 2 weeks vacation or whatever. And so
that's so anti-hustle culture, but I think you have the right mindset when it comes to that. Humans aren't meant to work. Like,
no. Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, when I'm during the season, man, am I working for sure. Like I'm working. But yeah, I mean, I want to be able to take some time off and travel and do things with my family and stuff like that. And so, anyways, what you alluded to when I first thought of this business, that's what attracted me to it. And when I brought that up to my dad, because my dad's been in business, his whole life too, and he's been a sounding board for me here and there. And his reaction was more along the lines of like, well, geez, how are you going to make money in the winter? You got to be able to make money in the winter, kind of a thing. And I told him, I was like, Dad, that's not like the idea is, to have the winters off. I want to go ski and stuff. And he just kind of gave me this, look like this is going to fail, like with that mindset kind of a thing. So, luckily I don't want to say I'm right or I was right, but luckily it worked out for me. Let's just put it that way. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about when you're interviewing candidates to become lifeguards. One of the things that you're talking to them about is the vibes of the pools. Yeah. So when you look at a collection of 25 different resort style pools, that range across the locations of Las Vegas, including the Strip, every hotel pool has a different vibe.
Yeah.
So can you talk to me about why, first of all, resort style pools in Las Vegas might be so attractive to a tourist? And, you obviously capitalize on that by staffing their pool with qualified lifeguards. And how you kind of match an individual with those pools.
Yeah, good question. So, and this is one of the things that I think is really cool about our company is that, let's say that somebody goes and gets a job at name a resort, whatever. I don't want to put but name any resort, They get a job at that resort. They don't like their manager. They don't like, the vibe of the pool. They don't like the people they're working with, name any of the above. Their only recourse at that point is to quit because they just don't like it there, and then go to go try to find another job at a different pool. What I think is really cool about us is that, like you said, we have all these pools, every pool is different. This happens to us on a weekly basis where somebody will come up to us, one of our guards, and text the line or whatever and say, hey, you put me at this pool and I've been working there for a couple weeks. It just doesn't fit with me. I just don't like it. Can we try somewhere else for me? And we say, hey man, as long as you can make it through your shifts, till the end of the week, we'll reschedule you at a different place next week. And not a problem to us. Literally no problem to us. But yeah, so it really depends on the person. Some people come to us and they say, man, I want to be at a day club. I want the music. I want the happening. I want to people watch. I want it all. Hey, great. Go to the day club, man. We'll get you there. Some people hate that, like when I was a guard, I would have hated that, honestly. Some people want to just be like bored off their socks, and go to those pools where nothing is happening. And to them, that's just chill and easy. Every pool, like you said, is different. Some pools play a lot of music. Some pools are dead silent. Some pools, have active membership where there's a lot of people swimming around. Some pools are the pool's just like eye candy, and it's just for people to sit out in the lounge chairs. Every pool is different, and so we like to have conversations with our employees, as we're kind of getting to know them and say, okay, what works for you? For some people, it's like, well, whatever's closest to my house, not a problem. But yeah, I mean, for a lot of people, you have to really think about, okay, no, you'd fit well here. And hey, go try it out. If you don't like it, come back. We'll send you somewhere else. So
there's so many different segments of pools that you manage. Like, I really think it would be a shame if we didn't even dive in just slightly further. Like, there's some pools that might not be in the best location. There's some pools where it's all families, and there's going to be so many kids, and they like it's going to be the most challenging because they struggle to swim. There's going to be places where you're literally watching senior citizens, as well as like some of the beach clubs, things like that.
Yeah.
And then there's other spots where it's just like people who purely have a lot of money and live in extremely prestigious neighborhoods in Las Vegas.
Yeah. I mean, we have pools, like you said, that range from pretty low rent, which is fine. That's totally like, hey man, I don't mind. Like I prefer non-stuffy pools myself, let's be real. Yeah, I mean, all the way to the pools where on a daily basis you're going to see celebrities there.
Yeah.
You really got to watch it, kind of a thing. You can't have your cell phone out. You got to refer to people on a Mr. Mrs. basis. You got to know their name. It runs the entire gamut of what we deal with for sure. So yeah, I mean, not to get into like which pools are which.
Yeah. But each pool has a personality.
Yeah.
It's basically what we're saying, and really you figure that out after you go to a couple, and you can kind of have that comparison. But really, once you have a good feel of what the pool is, you can kind of rank it amongst how it is on each different category.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I think that's a privilege, like you mentioned, especially of working for your company, that if you want to work at different environments, if you want to work at two different spots, maybe a quiet one on the weekends, or a loud one on the weekends and a quiet one on the weekdays, so you can do things like that. But I also want to touch on something you said, like, let's say a lifeguard has a disagreement with either a manager or another lifeguard. I think you are honestly the hero of the next generation for teamwork, kind of self accountability, and working with others. Like, you have great philosophies when it comes to the work culture of people dealing with others in kind of conflict settings.
Yeah. So, we have a bunch of, we have a generation of people right now who, they haven't worked. I mean, this is not new to any generation, but, you have a bunch of people right now who have never been in the workforce. They put this politely, I guess, like, they've always kind of gotten their way with, certain things in their lives and the way that people treat them and whatnot. And now all of a sudden they're thrust into the workforce, and, work is it's not a voluntary, I mean, it is voluntary for a lot of these kids, but, maybe their parents forcing them to get a job or something. But for the most part, like, work is not just like, hey, you still have to show up, and you have to work well with the people who you're there with. Yes, lifeguarding should be a fun job, but you still have to be able to handle people. And, your whole life, in any job you're going to be at, you're going to deal with coworkers who you don't like. And so we get a lot of lifeguards that come to us and say, oh, this other lifeguard, so-and-so, rubbed me the wrong way today. Can you not schedule me with this person ever again, kind of a thing. And it's like, yeah, we absolutely could do that, and that'd be the easiest thing to do. But let's, instead you learn from this and have a conversation with this person and, figure it out, kind of a thing. I mean, again, if you're working for some small firm, later on in your career, and you're actually, in a real job, whatever, and one of the 6 employees you're with you don't like, what are you going to do? Like, you don't have any recourse in that situation except for like quit, know? No, you need to learn how to deal with people. And, it's tough for 16, 17, 18-year-olds to hear that. Yeah. But I firmly believe that. I mean, I've had so many jobs before that, I hated some of the people I worked with, but you learn how to deal with them. You just have to, or else you're not going to be in that job long. Right. So, I mean, if you're the one that's discontent with somebody, usually your boss is going to figure that out, that it's you're the problem, not the other person. Yeah. So don't make yourself the problem,
And it really comes down to communication and kind of figuring out the problems. Like, if you just avoid the situation, it's not going to get better. So kind of figuring out the differences and talking, I think, is like goes a long way. Yeah.
I mean, we like I said, we deal with a lot of people in first-time jobs. We deal with a lot of young people. Unfortunately, not everybody has a great, parental figure to help them out and show them like, this is what you do in a job. Here's acceptable behavior, that sort of stuff. Some parents do a great job. Sometimes we get kids in that are just amazing. But it happens also a lot where kids come in literally not knowing proper work etiquette, all that sort of stuff. And we are kind of the stepping stone job for all these kids to, I see it as our responsibility to bring them correctly into the workforce.
Right.
We do these kids no favor if they come in and they don't know how to work, and we just, either just say, screw it, you're fired. Yeah. You're somebody else's problem. That doesn't do them any favors, and it doesn't do their next employer any favor. It is our job to kind of shepherd these kids, hold their hands, tell them, okay, no, this is how a job works. Okay, you screwed up in this. Let's try to work on it. As you know, I'm the king of giving people second and third chances, even when I shouldn't. There's plenty, there's so many times that, Chris, you've said, man, we need to fire this person. And I say, no, let's give them a chance. Let's work on them a little bit more. And finally, I realized that you're right. No, we just need to fire this kid. Yeah. But I always want to at least give them the shot to correct their behavior and do better. I think that's what we owe people, and especially in this sort of a job environment.
And Desert Lifeguard Management teaches a lot of the young people valuable life skills.
I would hope so.
No, I mean, I think in some regard, so, and I think it comes down to kind of the pre-orientation training. Like, I think a lot of it comes down to letting them know the expectation, because if you don't let them know the expectation ahead of time, you failed them. So letting these people know, hey, this is literally not okay. And it's not being so far out from these people that you're working with and managing to say like, hey, you guys cannot smoke the weed pen. Like, it's literally the weed pen example that gets people's eyes like lit up.
I mean, to me, like the weed pen one doesn't light my eyes up as much because I think in the guard's mind, there's always some deniability to it that, oh no, this isn't weed pen. Yeah. It's one thing if they're smoking a roach. I mean, that would just be so obvious, but like a weed pen, oh no, it was nicotine, To me, like, it's abhorrent to me that people will do that on a job. But, going back to your game of what have I seen, kids literally taking shots of alcohol on stand while they're watching the water. Yes, we've seen that happen. And that to me is even, that's just so brazen, And so, when you say that we have to give these kids like, hey, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. They're all because of previous examples. Yeah. We've literally seen it all. So, you have to, any job, any company has to do a pre-orientation and tell people, here's our company policies and all that sort of stuff. But I think that people would be surprised that our pre-orientation stuff is much more basic level than what you'd see at, a real job, like Deloitte and Touche or, Chevron or whatever, the stuff we're going over is so elementary to just, here's what a job is. Yeah. This is let's start with that.
We're going to post the schedule. Don't be late.
We're going to post the schedule. Here's what a schedule looks like. Yeah. Get your availability in. And if you don't, here's
you're going to check your schedule.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to send you a schedule and you're going to check it.
Yeah.
And if there's any problems, as soon as you check that schedule, you should let us know.
Yeah. Or scheduling, check your time card, like here's what a time card looks like. It's right there on your phone. Make sure you check it. This is how you get paid.
Tait, I didn't clock in at all, but I didn't get paid. What's up with that, man? Like,
yeah, and we definitely try to avoid that. I'll usually try to catch it, but you'd think that it's just basic common sense, but it's not common sense because a lot of these kids have never had jobs before, and so you have to teach them. Like I said, here's what a job is. Here's the basic thing, and by the time you graduate college and like I keep using the term real job, but that by then when you're dealing with professionals, they know all this. Yeah. I'm sure that when you go to become your first job as a doctor, They're not telling you in their first HR training, here's how you check your time card as a doctor.
No, I know. People are above that at that level.
Yeah.
So I think you do a lot of justice for the young folks and teaching them about their first job and opportunities that are available in the world. So you're kind of that stepping stone, that transition point, that pivotal ground of someone probably, most of your staff is high school, college age. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of them transition from high school to college under kind of your watch.
Yeah. And this is another thing too, that I think is really something that a company like mine and a job that we provide for people, this is another thing that we really have to do too, is transition them to the quote unquote real world and to bigger and better things kind of a thing. I mean, if I have somebody who comes back to me year after year after year after year, as a lifeguard, and we've never moved them up to lead lifeguard, and, they're just, it's 5-6 years, they're well past college age kind of a thing. Hey man, I'm happy that I'm getting a guard for 6 years. Don't get me wrong. I don't like turnover, but, I always say that my ideal worker will be somebody who, let's say comes to me in high school or maybe early college. They work for me each summer, and while they're still working through other things in their life to better their lives in other ways. And then once they graduate college or graduate, from whatever, technical school, trade school, whatever it is, then they come to me and they say, hey, Tait, I really hate to do this to you, but, I know I've worked with you for like 3-4 years, but, I finally graduated from that trade school. Mm-hmm. I got hired as an HVAC technician. That to me is a success story for my company. I'm thrilled to death at those people that come to me and say stuff like that to me. I wish them no ill will. I'm never going to say, oh, please stay with me. Yeah. No. You're moving on to your real life's purpose here. Yeah. Your life's purpose was not to be a lifeguard your entire life. Your life's purpose is to use that towards, doing something better in your life. So no, I mean, to me, that's like the epitome of a success story. Like, I hate to lose a good employee, but hey, if you're going to do something better with your life and I helped you get there, that's amazing. That's amazing to me, for sure.
It's even more of a success than in your own business, because you're kind of taking yourself out of it and you're wishing them the best for their future and what they want to do. And I think that's awesome. But I think that's a natural part of the business. But just to hear that you want, that's a case study, that's what you want from all of your employees is great. And I think, you've written several letter of recommendations for me in the past. So I think when people come to you and say, hey, I've graduated from my technical school, could you write me a letter of recommendation? It's like, gladly.
Yeah, gladly. I'll do it the exact same day. People always like, oh, I know you're so busy.
How long will it take? Yeah.
Same
day. Yeah.
Yeah. If somebody comes and asks me for a letter of rec, I will literally stop what I'm doing and do it the same day. Yeah. And they could be working for me currently. I don't care. Like, if I know that it's towards something better for them, all the better. And same, I mean, even if they aren't quitting for, to become something great, let's say they're just making some lateral move, like they just didn't like this place and they quit and, they want to go, work at, I don't know, McDonald's or whatever, or another lifeguard company or another, I literally just want the best for people. If they didn't get it with my company, hopefully it wasn't any of our fault. Hopefully it's just, something that they're going through. But, I'm never going to say like, oh, you must stay here or something like that. Like, oh, how dare you? It's like, okay, hey, this didn't work out great. Like, I genuinely wish the best for everybody after they leave. So
I think one thing I wanted to talk about is just kind of how you maintain your composure through such like difficult times sometimes, like through a people management business over several different years. Like, you get put in a lot of uncomfortable situations and situations that you probably don't want to be in. And I feel like you handle it rather than completely losing your cool. I haven't seen you lose your cool. Instead, what I see is someone who strategically responds to situations and maintains their composure at all times. And I want to know if that's a key in your success story. I want to share if that's, done on purpose and how you manage to hold your composure when, shit's not going well.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's first off, just kind of part of my personality. Yeah. I don't, when things are out of your control, there's no reason to get like super riled up about them. And I mean, technically everything that happens with my company should quote unquote be under my control. But how do you control somebody, like I said, using that example of a guard, literally like taking a shot of alcohol, like on stand, you know? I mean, he knows that was wrong, kind of a thing.
And it's embarrassing. Like
Oh, yeah.
you have to feel embarrassed by that.
It's embarrassing, but at the same time, you can't control everybody's behavior either. You
Right.
know, everybody has their own free will and, you know, self-determination, all that sort of stuff. So it's like, as much as I would love to say, like, you know, oh, like that person shouldn't have done that. You know, these are still kids and their brain is still developing and they make stupid decisions sometimes that you literally can't control. And so, you know, there's that. I mean, this does happen sometimes where a kid will do something and then management of the pool will come to me and say, well, geez, how did you let that person do that? It's like, well, yeah, I mean, we went over it in training.
Yeah.
But when push comes to shove and
Yeah.
they're up on stand, like it's out of my control at that
Yeah.
point. I can train them as well as I want. It's still a 16 or 17 or 18-year-old who, you know, frontal lobe hasn't fully developed and they're going to make stupid choices sometimes. And as long as I know that it's just stupid choices and, you know, that it's out of my control. And then other than that, I just kind of have to rely on the management of the pool to be cool with that, you know, and most of them are, you know, believe me, I don't want anything bad to happen. I
Right.
don't want kids to do stupid stuff. I try to train them up well and stuff like that, but they are going to do stupid things. And the management of the pools that I deal with, you know, they should realize that too.
Right.
And I have gotten rid of pools whose management were a little bit too, you know, unreasonable in my
Right.
expectations on this sort of stuff. I mean, I've gotten rid of enormous contracts for management that was too unreasonable about that. Like, that's one of the beauties about being an owner of a business. I can deal with whoever I want to.
Right.
You know, like if I have a client that I just don't like, hey, you know, I got other clients. Like, I don't need to deal with you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to lose money, but if it means that I don't have to deal with an unreasonable client, hey, that's fine with me. I'll deal with the clients who I want to deal with. So, you know, again, not to say like I want every guard to do their best. I want every guard to, you know, we try to train them up as best we can. But part of my mentality is just like people are going to do stupid things.
It's going to happen.
And when they do, hey man, like if it's something that we didn't train them on,
Yeah.
well, okay, now I need to step back and take a look and see what we can do better in the future. But if it's something we trained them on, if it's something that's totally common sense things, what am I going to do? You
Right.
know?
For
You
sure.
know?
Okay. Next question. I guess let's talk about being a business owner. Do you want to be kind of in everyone's face when it I guess let me rephrase that question. Do you want to be so involved with your employees that they have your personal number that they can text you anytime? Do you want to be so far off that they've never met you before that you're only kind of a figure? Like, how do you find that balance, you know, of being the business owner comparing to the employees? Because the employees might even have taboo sometimes. It's like, oh gosh, like Tait, oh, he's the owner. Like, you know, I'll be on my P's and Q's, which is obviously a good thing. That's, you know, probably a good, smart thing to do. But how do you talk me through that hierarchy?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And I mean, earlier in this business, when we were much smaller, you know, I could have said, yes, I know every single one of these employees and I've met them all. And back then, as we discussed earlier, they did all have my cell phone number and they all had your cell phone number. And, you know, now at the point where we have so many guards, you know, unfortunately, there is times that I don't meet all of them, you know. But then there's some guards that I'll see several times in a summer and they think they know me super well. And then other guards that like literally will never meet me. And unfortunately, that's just kind of how it goes once your business gets to a certain size, I believe. And it's not even that we're like so enormous. I mean, there's certainly businesses out there that are far, far bigger than mine, and maybe their CEO knows every single employee, but they're probably more centralized businesses where all the employees are in one location. And because we're so decentralized, spread out all over town, sometimes it just is almost impossible for me to get to meet everybody. Not to say that I want to be like this, murky figure that's like in a smoke-filled room and all that sort of stuff. I want to feel like I'm accessible. But sometimes it just doesn't happen. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
So talk me through what kind of like an ideal employee of your company is, like someone that works a lot of hours, like
not necessarily. I mean,
someone that shows up to work.
Yeah, I mean, man, 90% of what we think of as a great employee is just somebody who literally shows up on time and somebody who shows up every time.
Yeah.
They may not even be the best guard once they're like on stand, but if you can do those two things, like you have earned a lot of brownie points in our book. So I mean, other than that, like an ideal employee, like just your absolute ideal employee will, show up on time. They'll show up every time. They'll be engaged in the work. They'll be interested in lifeguarding, and when I say that, I mean, when you get your lifeguard cert, that tells you that you knew your stuff on whatever, March 10th or whatever day you got your cert on. And
speaking of that, what do you need to be a certified lifeguard? Yeah,
so it's a pretty easy process. It takes a 7-hour online course to start with. Then you come into a 2-day. We teach a 2-day lifeguard training class where we get you in the water, teach you the rescue skills, CPR, first aid, AED, all that sort of stuff. So it's a fairly easy process. It takes about 24 hours to get through.
A weekend, a little more than a weekend.
A little bit more than a weekend to get through. So, that ideal employee, like I said, engaged in the work. They want to better themselves as a lifeguard. They see the job as more than just like a paycheck. They see it as like something that they want to master. Let's just say. And that's something that I try to tell to new employees too, that, whatever you do in your life, try to do it to the best of your ability. Like, you may just think of this as just a lifeguard. Oh, it's a stepping stone job, whatever. You may be working at McDonald's and think of it as, oh, this is just a stepping stone job and whatever, I'm just going to go through the motions on this job. That is such a terrible mindset to have. Because if you're just waiting for that real job and now you're going to step it up, you're not going to know how.
Right.
And so every job that you have, no matter how small it is, literally try to be the best at it that you can be. I know that that's very much a cliche, and a lot of people out there would think like, oh, well, I freaking hate my job, blah, blah, blah. But seriously, like if you want to get better, if you want to, move up in the world, treat every job like that,
Can I make it even more cliche?
Yeah, sure.
How you do anything is how you do everything.
Oh, yeah.
I think that just summed up the idea of what you're talking about, Tait.
Yeah, there you go.
But I think that's true. And I think like when you do come into lifeguarding or your first job or any job and you have that mindset like, hey, I'm going to do this the best of my ability. It may not be glamorous, but sometimes you're working in cool lifeguard environments like the day club. So it is cool. Like I like my job. I'm happy to be here. Like I'm going to, if you're allowed to have your shirt off, I'm going to take my shirt off and show off my cool body because I'm a young adult and living the my life to the best of my ability. And I think those are opportunities that you give young folks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can have fun at this while still doing a good job.
Heck yeah.
And
you have to still work though, right?
You absolutely still have to work. And I mean, we get a lot of guards that come in and think, oh, this is just some easy job and this and that, and hey, I'm just doing this, like you said, to take off my shirt and stuff and look cool. But it has to be more than that.
Yeah.
And if it's not, we're going to be able to tell real quickly, and we're going to have words with you, and we're going to try to coach you up and make you better and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it is a shame how many people. I mean, when I first became a lifeguard, this was back in the year 2000, back when I was 18 years old. I know, man, I just aged myself there, but I was really fortunate that I had a lot of other lifeguards at the pool that I was working at for the city of Henderson that we had kind of a competitive nature, and we all thought that we were better than each other and we needed to prove it to each other. So we really studied up, how to do the CPR and how to do your spinals correctly and how to do this correctly. and we would test each other on it, and we would do all this sort of stuff, and we really all lifted each other up by that and this kind of competitive nature, and that stuck with me kind of throughout my whole life. And because of that, I moved up very, very quickly with the city of Henderson. With them, I was a guard one year. The very next year, they made me a senior lifeguard. The very next year, they made me a pool manager. I was the first pool manager, and I opened up I was the first pool manager at the Whitney Ranch pool when it first opened up. And then they trusted me so much that I was the first pool manager to open up the multi-gen center when it opened up. And it was just because I liked it and I was good at it. I went off and graduated college and went off and did other things in my life because it was like, well, lifeguarding isn't, you can't make a living at that for real. Yeah. And very quickly realized that the rest of the real world is not as fun. Yeah. And so now how do I make a living at lifeguarding? I'm not just going to get paid X number of dollars an hour just being a lifeguard. I need to figure out another way. And so fortunately for me, I had the luck of creating my business at the right time.
How did you figure it out? How did you figure out that you wanted to leverage other people as lifeguards to run a lifeguard staffing business?
Yeah, so that was one thing my dad used to tell me when I was a kid was, if you ever start a business, try to start a business that does leverage other people. You can start a business by yourself and just be your own employee, but there's only so big you can grow just yourself with your own productivity and your own, wherewithal. You need other people to make money for you, essentially. And so that was, the first seed that, my dad put in my mind. And then, in the early 2010s, I started to realize that there was a lot of places out there that were outsourcing anything, not just, forget lifeguards, just anything. Businesses don't want to have employees if they don't need to. Right. If they're not key to the business that they are running, say it's a tech firm, they just want tech firm employees. Right. Any company is going to outsource, say, the janitors. Any company is going to outsource whatever they can, the security company, or the security guards. So I started to see that trend, and I thought, well, I don't know anything as well as I know lifeguarding when it comes to this sort of thing. So maybe this can be an idea. It had been done in Vegas before, but there was one company that kind of dominated whoever it was that wanted lifeguards at the time. It wasn't a big idea yet. Mm-hmm. And so I started the company in 2014. We're about to hit our 10-year anniversary.
Congrats.
In April. And so before we were even a company, I literally cold called and went like door to door and tried to pitch my services to all these HOAs and all these companies, and literally got told no by every single one of them, like to a person, every single one,
What did you bring? Did you bring I
brought a gift basket for them to try to,
What's in the gift basket?
The gift basket had it was very lifeguardy cliche stuff like Lifesavers candies and like a little pocket rescue mask for from the Red Cross, and like a sunscreen and stuff like a little tiny first aid kit, I think.
Did you have marketing materials?
You had
like pamphlets that you could leave them with, business cards?
Yeah, I had business cards and pamphlets too that I could leave them with.
So
and stuff.
you were trying to be real, right? In your mind you were a business.
Yeah, I didn't have any clients yet. I spent the money to get a logo. I spent the money to get a website. All these marketing materials and stuff like that. It wasn't much money. It was like less than $1,000, but it was still okay. Let's try to put this out there and see. And so brought all these marketing materials. It opened the door. I got meetings, but they all told me no. And sometimes I wouldn't even get a meeting. I would just have to leave the basket and then just say, okay, peace out.
So you would go in person and request a meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha. Did you feel that was the best strategy, or why did you choose that strategy?
I chose that strategy, probably an old school idea of hey, you got to hand deliver your resume, which is something that is just a ridiculous concept these days. Yeah. But that was probably part of it, and probably just kind of a desperation of how else are they going to figure out who I am and stuff. And, a lot of them told me, okay, we'll keep you on our list or something like that. And so, after being told no by who I thought everybody in the entire city, I was like, well, I don't know if this is going to be a business. This may not be anything. And then a couple weeks later, I got this call from the Silverton. They'd seen my website somehow, and said, oh, geez, man, looks like you're the only person in town, because this other competitor that was in town at the time, they didn't even have a website. I think they just, it was all word of mouth for them, and they didn't care about marketing anymore. And so at the time, I was the only website out there, at least. And the Silverton column was like, it looks like you're the only people in town. And I had to have that kind of self-confidence to be like, I am the only person in town.
Yeah.
But I can help you, and let's get this done. That first couple of years getting clients was very much fake it till you make it kind of a thing. Like, yes, I absolutely knew how to run lifeguards.
Yeah.
I'd done it for years.
Yeah.
But I'd never done it with my own business. And so it was like, no, I had to be like, oh yeah, no, I've managed guards in these big pools and, this and that, not telling them that it wasn't my company.
Yeah.
It was, me as a manager for these other places. But, like I said, very much fake it till you make it. And then, word of mouth starts growing, and then, website starts growing and stuff like that. And then it just kind of boomerang from there, honestly. And, the first few years was tiny for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was a proud 4-figure CEO, for the first several years, first 5 years probably, made less than $10,000 at it. I had to have another job just to make ends meet, kind of a thing. And, finally, got the palms, and that was the first big client I had. And, just has mushroomed from there, like literally just mushroomed. I got really lucky because the health department changed some of their codes on lifeguarding. Mm-hmm. So, if you were to ask me, like, what's the key to success? I mean, there's so many keys that we've already talked about. Have a good team, have a good business plan, have a good idea, work really hard, so many things. But man, I cannot underscore the importance of luck.
Yeah.
Too. You can have all of those other things, have the greatest idea in the world, and have no luck involved in it, and you're sunk. So I mean, I had the luck of having the health department change their rules, and that made a lot of people think, oh my gosh, we really need lifeguards now. And I happened to already be in the market. Yeah. And since I was already in the market, even though I was still kind of small, that was what I needed. So there's a lot that goes into having a successful business, but and for some people, that all of those variables that I just talked about are not going to be the same for each person. There's some people that just run into dumb luck right at the beginning, and they don't need much more. There's some people that you need a ton of work and just a little bit of luck, but luck, man, you cannot underscore luck for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you work well when it comes to supply and demand. I mean, like you just spoke about how you kind of elevated in life when it comes to your business, but going to supply and demand, like you have a business that's supplying services, and the health department changes things that these organizations, these casinos, these HOAs now demand. So you're there when they need it.
Yeah, for sure. And when you talk about supply and demand, I mean, I was an economist in school and all that, and so you think like, oh, geez, when the demand's there, I can raise prices and really gouge people and whatnot. And I would say that is a terrible idea to do. Yeah. If you find yourself in the situation as a business owner that you can you think you can make a quick buck and think, oh man, they really need this, let me just stick it to them and raise my prices. I would say do not do that. I've always looked at the long-term approach. Once I get a client, they may be desperate the first time they call me, but if I give them this ridiculous quote, then they're not going to want to stick with me. They're going to want to try to find somebody else the next year and see if they can get a better rate and whatnot. And so I try to give them the most fair rate right off the bat. And, fair enough that they're not going to say, well, let's just hire our own lifeguards or, let's find another company. If you're fair with your clients, they're going to stick with you, you know? And, I'm not going to pretend like I have had the best lifeguards in the world at all times. Like I said, I try, and we try to train them and all that, but kids make stupid decisions, and as we talked about, but as long as you treat your client fairly, they will stick with you and you'll be okay, So that's another piece of advice that I would give for sure.
So I would say it's fair to say that you do ethical business, right? You try and not poach other people's lifeguards. You try and not give people unfair quotes. You try and you charge people fairly. And I think that goes a long way. And I think one lesson you taught me is like when we really needed lifeguards, like I came to you say, hey, maybe we should, advertise at other pools, like, hey, like come join our team. And you said like, no, word will get around fast. Like that'll hurt reputation.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very like noble thing to say, even when we need these people, it would be great to have them. We wish we had them.
Yep.
To say like, hey, like we need to find it the honorable way and we need to get these people ourselves.
Yeah. You need to do things the right way through and through and through, like you said, I mean, whatever business you're in, people will find out. Your reputation is all that a business has.
Yeah.
And once you lose that reputation, it's really hard. I mean, all it takes is one. I mean, for instance, like with the word of mouth thing with my business, I've gotten so much business because, an executive was at this hotel, moved to another hotel, and convinced their management team that, hey, we need desert lifeguard management. And then somebody else moves to another hotel and says, we need desert lifeguard management. You burn bridges with any of those people.
Yeah.
When they move, instead of them saying, we need desert lifeguard management, they're going to say, do not hire desert lifeguard management. So yeah, you have to do things ethically. Like you said, man, would have been nice to just go poach guards.
Yeah.
But you got to find them the right way. You got to hire them up the right way. You can't take the easy way out for sure. And that's why for so many years we were working like dogs.
Yeah. But I think at the end of the day, like you're doing a great thing. I think it's a win-win. You're giving young people an opportunity to have jobs, to have a great career, to make money, to have purpose in the world. And I think that's awesome. I think it's obviously a win for you as a business. You get to make money, you get to be the owner of the business, you get to have some freedom in terms of that. Obviously it comes along with lots of stress.
Yeah.
It doesn't come easy. So I clearly get that. But I think it's incredible to see kind of what you've built over the last decade. I think it's been incredible to have me be a part of it. I think I give a lot of credit to you for giving me some opportunities with your company. And I think it's helped me get where I kind of am today. And I think that's really the whole concept of kind of the show. It's like elevation, like kind of climbing the ladder of success, growing as a person, becoming a higher level individual. I mean, when I first met you, I was a freshman at UNR, and clearly I've done a lot of things since then. And desert lifeguard management, I mean, to say that the growth has been exponential would be 100% true. So with, Tait, you got like a badass business. Like it is a summer cash cow in the Las Vegas market. Like people need these things. So it's really just kind of incredible to see what you've built. So definitely thanks for coming on the podcast today. And I really appreciate you being on the show today for Elevation with Chris Orm. This has been, what episode are we on now? This is episode 5. So really thanks for being on the show, Tait. And,
you got it.
Really appreciate you, man.
Pleasure. Thank you, Chris.